Today's episode might be longer or shorter. Honestly, I don't even know because I might talk myself into a circle, but I also might not say anything. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So I know that I said I wanted to make this podcast something that I was able to talk about all my interests and do all these things. But honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like that was just because I was trying to heal my inner child or whatever. It felt that even when I was a kid, that even though I had friends who may have had the same interests as me and whatnot, I still felt like there was some kind of resistance, and I was holding back on talking about the things that I liked to its full extent because I didn't want to bother people, or I just felt like my liking of it was way more intense than theirs was. So I didn't want to be the person who people were like, okay, sweetie, I like it but not that much, relax. Out of fear of me being just too much for people, I feel like I just harbored a lot of resistance to things. And in that way, I think for me making this podcast, I was like, you know what, I'll finally be able to talk about everything I want to talk about and blah 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 blah. I feel like over the years I've just become more and more boring because I've just been dampening myself for other people for so long, and then I meet people and I'm like, I'm so stale. Why didn't I say this funnier thing, or why didn't I do this thing? And it's girl, it's not that you're not funny or you're not interesting. It's just that over the years you've just kind of convinced yourself that you didn't really matter. So now that you kind of want to matter, you're not that you don't. It's just that now that you kind of want to show up for yourself like you didn't when you were a kid, it's just difficult because it's not A, something I'm accustomed to, and then B, it makes me think if I didn't do that when I was a kid, I wonder what I'd be like now. And I don't know. I feel like the word interesting is super, it's like a blanket term because it's just what makes a person interesting and what makes someone uninteresting, you know? I feel like you kind of just get into a situation, you meet people, and you kind of can just tell, oh, this person's not interesting, or, oh, this person has a lot to say. They're this or they're that. So I feel like people just categorize people a lot, and in my head I guess I just wanted to be categorized as interesting and cool. I was talking to my friend Zach and I was like, if I made this podcast when I was 14, I feel like I would have literally had a ball. I literally would have just been talking about literally everything. That's when the height of my love for anime was too. So I was also just watching random TV shows that I found on Netflix and just binging them. I feel like I had so much more interest and a zest for life. I feel like I have a zest for life now, but in a different way, because when you're a kid you kind of just want to take in the world. So yeah, I was a consumer. I loved the internet, I loved playing games, I loved watching anime, and I loved like I said, watching all these TV shows. And that was 7th grade was when I found my favorite music group ever, Fantagram. So I feel like I was just finding all of my favorite things at that age. So I think I just wanted to talk about them all the time. Now that I'm older, I feel like the zest for life that I have now is more towards the inner as opposed to the outer. Taking steps to make my inner happy, because I feel like now that I know what type of TV shows I like, what type of music I love, and all these different things I figured out when I was middle school that have been just developing as I age. Now I'm just focused on making sure my surroundings don't stress me out. And that's a good thing too. So it's I'm being able to enjoy that content and all those fun things while making sure that my brain doesn't go haywire. Honestly, I didn't even realize it until I just said it. I'm sitting here, I'm why don't I have any ideas about episode 4? What am I even supposed to say? I'm sitting here yelling at myself. I'm Sanaa, you don't have any interest. You're so boring. You don't, I'm not yelling at myself that I'm boring in a negative way. I'm just girl, you don't have nothing to say at all. And I'm sitting here, I'm well, I did start reading. So am I supposed to start talking about my book? I mean, I could, but I just feel I'm not as interested in talking about content as in books, TVs, movies as I used to be. I feel I'm not as adept at finding a niche anymore. I feel like when I was a kid, I was like really into a lot of things, and that's okay. So as much as I did really want this podcast to be about like talking about all my different interests and like, you know, going into depth about, oh my God, this is this and this and that. Honestly, I feel like this podcast is probably just going to be where my head's at each week. And if that's not what you came here for, I'm really sorry. Honestly, definitely gonna be integrating, like if I read a book and it made me think about this thing, or if I watched a TV show and it made me think about this thing or whatever, I'm definitely going to integrate that somehow, whatever. I also have a friend who was asking if he can come on the show and we can talk about anime together, which I think that's more fun for me, like bringing someone on to have a dialogue about something. Being around others for me is what allows me to be more creative. And when I'm discussing it with someone else, it's like they'll bring up something I never thought of, and then I'm like, oh wait, yeah, like I did want to mention that, or I did have that problem. And it's just like, it just feels like a much more productive conversation as opposed to just me talking to a camera. And honestly, yes, I can do research and like talk about the ins and outs of something and make it productive on my own. But honestly, I feel like you're really not on this planet by yourself. And that becomes so much more apparent to me when I like go out and eat with my friends or talk to my friends. I'm like, wow, like this world is so vast, and I'm so grateful for like being around human beings, because I don't know, if I was on this planet by myself, I think I would die. Like even like the main fact that I wear glasses, like that's already like survival of the fittest. I will die in the woods. I don't think I can really make it. So like, just being completely honest with you right now, this podcast is most likely going to just be a mental check-in, or just kind of what things I've been thinking about that have been going on in like the past week, as opposed to like super niche based. I might make a segment in the show like in the very beginning, like, oh my goodness, okay, so this episode I'm gonna be talking about this show, this book, this whatever, and then like also just a discussion about this topic. So the segment idea is a lot more productive, as opposed to just me sitting here in my room like, what thing should I talk about this week, what thing. I think the last episode was super well received by a lot of you guys, because it was something that I had like tangible, like, whoa, I have something to say here about this, and this. And I like broke it up into like bite-sized pieces, as opposed to being like, so yeah, this is what happened, this is how I feel. It's like, no, this is the progression of my thoughts. Yeah. The Hip and Cool podcast is going through a brain fart, and I would love to hear like what anyone would like to hear about, because honestly, if there's a demand for it, like from a personal standpoint, I feel like I would care about that more too, because when someone like asked me specifically, can you please talk about this thing, I'd be like, whoa, like someone actually, you know, wants me to say something about this thing. I'd be great, like I'd be glad to just give it a little like research and like talk about it, or like, what are your thoughts on blah, blah, blah. Like I love to talk about it. So this week, originally I was gonna bust out my sewing machine and do a sewing with me, because I don't know how to sew like crazy, but I'm learning how. So I was like, maybe if I sew while I talk, it'll be more fun for the viewer. But then like I started it and I immediately just started crying. I feel like it's really funny, because I feel like based on how I talk in this podcast, I feel like I sound like I'm the most sad person on the planet. Like, oh, you know, like I was going through this. I recently made a clip for Instagram and TikTok about like last episode, and it was basically me just kind of like, yeah, so when I was graduating college, I was just really sad and just really upset about just not having a job, and I just literally cried, and I was just and you know, I'm really grateful that like people in the comments, like family and friends, were very kind and just like, Sanaa, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And I was like, oh, like, I mean, granted, the end of the podcast episode was more me talking about like how I kind of stopped thinking that way. So I guess I could have added in the video that I'm doing better. But I feel like from that clip, it just sounded like I was just going through it like currently. I just want to set the record straight. I am enjoying unemployment thoroughly. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Like, you listen to me. If you told me like what I'm thinking about. Like in high school when I was doing SYEP, which is summer youth employment, like through the New York City government, if you told me when I was doing SYEP that, yo, you're gonna graduate college and be happy that you don't have a job, I think I would literally laugh at you in the face. I don't know. Like, I don't know what I would say to you. I would sit there and be like, are you drunk? I don't know. Because the amount of like just sheer calmness I felt since like being okay with unemployment, I feel like there was this stress kind of just lifted off of my chest when I realized, like, bro, I have so much time. And I started my YouTube channel in college and I just didn't have any time to do it. And it used to make me sad because I enjoy video editing and I enjoy like that's really the most fun part for me, the video editing process. And also for this podcast, like the sound editing, that's where I feel like I excel the most. And like making those clips for TikTok and Instagram, like making those clips from the podcast is like so fun to me. Like I find so much joy in like just being the man behind the computer. So, that's kind of also what was giving me a little bit of anxiety. I was like, maybe I should just like ask somebody to make a podcast, give them my microphone, ask them to make the podcast. And then I'll be at peace because I'll just have to edit and that'll be great. But honestly, I was like, you know what? Why the hell not? Just like talk. I feel like what's wrong with talking? Like, I'm not saying I need to be like, you know, the most listened to podcast in the world, but like, you know, someone's gonna find this enjoyable. I mean, I enjoy editing it and I enjoy like just talking, you know, smack to the camera. So honestly, it's a win, maybe win for you. Honestly, that's why I was saying too. I was like, so now why are you taking this so seriously? Like, it's supposed to be a fun thing. Like, this is not that deep. I don't know. Like, I guess because for me, I'm like so disciplined all the time, especially like in college. I was like, yo, if I don't get straight A's, I'm gonna like, it's not, it's just like like, and it's not even like my parents were stressing me about it. Like in high school, yeah, my parents were like, bro, give me your grades, tell me what you got, da da da. High school, middle school, elementary school. Yeah, they were super like heavy, like, on like what are you getting in school, da da da. But once I went away to college, they did not care like that. I mean, granted, they were like expecting that I do well because, you know, you're sending your kid to, you know, all the way to Buffalo, 6 hours away, the middle of nowhere. Maybe not the middle of nowhere, but like, you know, it's like halfway to nowhere. Well, that's also middle. Wait, almost to nowhere, right? You're sending your kid almost to nowhere to like do some schoolwork, and then like you're working hard to like pay for them to go to school. Granted, like in my opinion, if you have kids, you're kind of like, and you like force your ideals on them, it's kind of confusing to me because like they didn't ask to be here. But I do, as a child and I as of immigrant parents, like I understand. And I was like, you know what, I chose to go away to school too. It's not like I was like, 'cause my parents also said, they were like, you don't have to go away to school, you can go local, you also don't have to go to school at all. My parents were like not super stressed on me to like go to school, but they were like, if you're not gonna go to school, you're gonna have to find a job. Like you gotta figure out what you want. Like you're, you know, they were at least like accommodating in that sense, which was really cool. But I chose to go away. So it was like, I understand that like I'm just all the way in the middle of nowhere, even though my parents aren't stressing me about grades. I think they would want me to do well. Like, you know, just in general, people's parents probably want their kids to do well in school. So I bust my ass in school, got summa cum laude, and then I finished school and I was like, okay, where's the jobs? Where's the 6-figure jobs? And then, like I said in the last episode, I went into this like really bad cycle of just like shitting on myself, feeling okay, and then shitting on myself again and just feeling like, okay. And it was just like, it's funny because I have the CoStar app, which is like the, if you don't have CoStar or know what it is, it's like an astrology app. You put your birthday, time of birth, and you know, every day it tells you you're literally a piece of garbage, and you're like, oh my god, so true. That's literally what me and my friends used to do in college. We used to just read it to each other and be like, oh my god, this actually relates because da 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 da. Like me, Fong, and Lauren were up at school just reading each other's co-stars to each other and just being like, yo, this relates because da 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 da. And we was like, oh my god, wait, you think about this? Like we used to take it like, we weren't like taking it serious, but we were like, you know, it was our little cute meeting for the day. We were just talking about our little co-star. Honestly, I, you know, would read my co-star and it would tell me, what was I going to say about co-star? Oh yeah. Co-star told me that I'm like addicted to stress or like addicted to my anxiety. It's like, what did it say? It was like, you find yourself in the cycle of just being stressed and like life as a preliminary to kind of just feeling stressed. So like you when you're calm, you think of it as like, oh, like this is just pre-stress. And I was like, wait a second. Like, even though you're not really supposed to take Co-Star seriously, me, Fong, and Lauren were like reading it for fun sometimes. There were times where we used to read it and be like, wait a second, this is actually kind of scary. There were times where I've read Co-Star and just been like, you're in my phone conversations, like you're in my text messages, you're in my brain, like there's a chip in my brain, like how do you know what's going on? This is not an ad for Co-Star, but honestly, I will say, Co-Star, if you actually somehow find this video, whatever, cool. I'll be in your, put me on the payroll. Why not? But anyway, back to what I was saying before. I was in this really bad cycle of just stressing and feeling okay, stressing and feeling okay. And once I really just honed into that feeling and was like, hold on, Sana. And I started taking walks, started reading more, started meditating. Trying, at least. I'm trying my best because I'd be meditating and I'd be like singing songs in my head or like thinking about what I'm gonna eat later that day. It's really bad. And like I usually do guided meditation because it's hard for me to like get those random thoughts out. And they're like, if you hear a thought, say thank you and say no thank you. And I'd be like, okay, no thank you. And the thought is like, girl, shut up. Like, it's so difficult for me to meditate sometimes because I'm sitting there like I'm taking it seriously or whatever. I'm like, because that's the main thing. Like when you're doing stuff like that, like meditating and journaling and stuff, if you're not taking it seriously, there's kind of no point. So I was like, if I don't take this seriously, or yoga and stuff like that, if I'm not like actually being serious about it, then what's the point? It's kind of just me sitting on the ground, like giggling to myself in like, like the crane like pose or whatever. So I might as well like actually like be for real about it. So I'm in like my, cross like pretzel position, sitting down, trying to meditate, and the guided meditation is trying to guide me. And I'm literally just sitting there just like humming in my brain, like just like, oh my god, da, 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 what about this? What about that? And I'm just like, this is not working. Sometimes I don't even know if I'm doing meditation properly. But I'm definitely trying my best. So, and that's okay. That's what matters. This morning, I just got up at 6 a.m. and brushed my teeth and went for a walk. And I was like, bro, if I had a job, I'd probably be way too tired to want to get up and do these things. And hopefully when I do get a job, I still continue like meditating, doing yoga, and practicing like self-care and stuff like that, because the amount of time that I've actually gotten to do things that like honor me has just made me feel so much better about the things going on in the world and just letting go of not feeling control. Because when you in your head, you're like, okay, I'm going to follow the American dream path. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get my degree. And I'm going to have a 6-figure paying job and live my best life with my kids and my white picket fence. And I'm going to go for it, right? It's just, it sounds so hilarious to me, like saying it out loud, but that's kind of what everyone tries to do to some extent. Like no one really says it, especially like, because, I feel like people, at least in the Gen Z generation, it's a little redundant, but people in Gen Z are like, at least my friends and like my community are actively trying to like dismantle these things to some extent and like try to find joy in what they do as opposed to just doing it because they are doing it. To some extent, right? You have to play the game. I will say like people need money, even though it's a social construct and things that like we created, and it sucks that it even exists, but like you kind of just need it. And there are things you kind of just have to accept in order to like live comfortably in society. So I'm not going to deny that, but at the same time there's this like level of like consciousness that I feel like exists within at least my friend group and like friends that I know in my circle, where it's like actively trying to just be mindful of the systems in place and not trying to perpetuate them in any way. Like, for example, when you hear someone make a really, really bad remark about women, if you're a man, making sure that you check that right there and then and not make it water under the bridge, when it's like, no, we're trying to dismantle these like systems in ways that we can, while not making it seem as though these systems are like super heavy loads that we can't tackle all at once. It's like, no, it's not just like misogyny and the patriarchy and white supremacy are not like things that you can't attack in your everyday, because that's where it mostly comes from, your everyday interactions. Like if you ignore them, that's when you become complicit in it. So you can't complain about, oh my god, like, you know those like funny memes where just like, this is me when I think about the fact that women have to deal with da 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 da. It's like, you know, they're memes or whatever, but at the same time it's like you can't sit there and like think about all the plights that women have to go through every single day, and then when your homeboy makes a very tasteless joke, awful joke, not even a joke, just like being an idiot, just be complicit. Because I feel like sometimes people take joking too far, because a lot of people are like, oh my god, we can't joke nowadays, people can't joke nowadays, da da da. It's like, no, it's not that we can't joke nowadays, you're just not funny, you're just racist, you're just a bigot. Like, you can make jokes about things, but just don't be racist. Like, I don't know, people are weird. I don't know how this got into like race thing, but here we are. But we're not gonna stay here, we're gone. The train left the station. All in all, what I was just trying to say is recently I've found a lot of peace within myself and okay with taking things slow. Life for me is like going at a really good pace. And look, not gonna say that there aren't days where I'm like, bruh, I wish I had like, you know, income. I want a 2-income household with just me living in it and no job. That would be iconic. That would be ideal. Like 2-income household with no job. Like what? No, like being for real. Like there are days that pass where I'm like, you know, I kind of do wish I had a job right now. You know, it's just like I'm trying right now to be present and accept things as they are and be more optimistic about the fact that good will come, especially if I keep trying. It's not that I'm not applying to jobs and I'm just like sitting in my house, you know, withering away. And if I was, more power to me, honestly. I wish I withered away earlier, because then I would be a little bit more comfortable with like post-grad life, because right after college ended, I was like, I was like heavy on the self-deprecation. It was real bad. So I feel like if I allowed myself to just take a break more, or just gave myself a little bit more leeway to just breathe, I would be more comfortable with where I'm at right now. But I'm glad at the strides that I have made, and I'm super, super happy that I'm not applying for jobs I don't want just because I want an income or whatever. It's just like no one's rushing me. Like, not even my mom and dad are rushing me. So why am I rushing myself? I think I said this in the last episode too. Like, what? There's no rush. Like, no one's even asking me to like, so da 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 da. Like, no one's asking me to do anything. So I'm not, and not, so like, why am I asking myself to do things? Once I like opened my eyes and was like, bro, I was like looking left and right, and I was like, no one's like yelling at me. It's just me. Cause I was like, I guess I had my eyes closed and was like, okay. You know, like a cadet. I was like a cadet in like the army or something, being screamed at by the major. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I like opened my eyes for a second while like saluting. And I was like, wait a second. Where's the major? There's no major there yelling at me. The voices are coming from inside my head. So that's how I know. It was really just me the whole time screaming. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, there aren't even any other soldiers next to me. I'm the only cadet at this boot camp. There's only one tent. And the major is me yelling at the cadet, who is also me. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just leave the boot camp? Like, I don't know what you've been told. Like, why am I going through such rigorous training at some boot camp that I signed up for? Like, it was me who did that. Like, I probably was like signing the papers to leave, and metaphor in this analogy, because, you know, we're still in the boot camp analogy. My mother was like, girl, where are you going? And I was like, to this boot camp. And she's like, why are you going to this boot camp? I'm like, well, I should probably go. Like, you know, I need to like, you know, force myself to do things. She's probably like, okay, girl, have fun. And then I went there and she's like, girl, I told you guys not to go there. I don't know why you got this boot camp screaming at yourself. You're the only one there. So you see this analogy? I hope that I painted a good picture for you. So now, instead of being at this boot camp, I'm sitting aside a beach in Barbados, you know? relaxing. I wish I was in Barbados, actually, low key, but I'm not. Mentally there, mentally there. And I'm living a great unemployed life. And I feel like that's good. I haven't been overthinking. The only time I overthink is when I meditate, actually. And it's not even overthinking. I just think. Because you're not supposed to be thinking. Not that you're not supposed to think. I think that, honestly, it's not about what you're supposed to and not supposed to do. I think you're just supposed to be more relaxed. But then I've been, like, in the meditation, I actually have this, like, app called Headspace that I got, like, a 60-day trial on or whatever. And I do a lot of the guided ones, like I said before. And a lot of them are like, just acknowledge your feelings. Stop yelling at them. And I'm like, that's so true. And then, so yeah, when I'm at the beach, in this analogy, once again, I start realizing, oh my God, why am I wearing my uniform, my boot camp uniform? I need to go back into my casual clothes. Like, sometimes, like, yeah, even though I'm mentally, like, on the pathway to, like, being more calm and, like, accepting things and not being as, like, rigorous with myself, I sit and I realize, look down, and I'm like, bro, I'm still in my boot camp clothing, like, yelling at my thoughts. Like, why am I yelling at my thoughts for existing? Like, that's so weird. Because, like, you think about it, you wouldn't yell at your friend. So why are you yelling at yourself? You know what I mean? Like, doesn't make any sense. Especially, I also feel like being more calm with myself is helping me be a better friend. Because I realize, like, I'm so much more, like, attentive to people now that I'm attentive to my thoughts. Because I'm like, bro, you're not actually, like, even anxious about this thing. I think you're just worried that it won't work out. But remember this time that it did? And I just, like, been more action based with my thoughts as opposed to, like, words. Because, like, look, telling yourself you got this, you got this, you got this is a good way to, like, manifest, I guess, or create a world in your mind where things are going to be okay and you do got this. But at the same time, I do feel like when I show myself examples of times when I got to it or had it, it's a lot easier for me to be like, oh yeah, you're right, because I have evidence. It's not that I'm, like, just saying it, you know? It's like, oh, there's proof. And if I don't have any proof and I'm like, oh, you know what, this is something I have had a hard time doing, so I'm trying to figure out how I can get it and be in a state where I got this. Okay, well, what steps can we take to get it then? How can we got this in the future, you know? So I've just been trying to be a bit more action-based with myself, and that also helps me a lot too. Just being like, girl, you got this, but let me show you why. And just when I start stressing about stuff, like, oh my God, da 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 da, it's like, why are you stressing about this again? Who's stressing you about this again? Are you rushing yourself to do this? No. And then I actually just, like, realize that everything's okay, you know? But then when I actually, you know, if I am having a panic attack, I do, like, the little, like, I'm safe thing. I just gotta remind myself that I'm physically okay, all those things. But, like, right now, I've been, like, super calm to a point where, like, I've been, like, put in situations where, like, I would normally have freaked the hell out. And then I'm like, okay, I should probably care more about this thing because I normally would. So, like, I go through the motions of trying to care, right? But I just can't bring myself to. And it's been actually making me laugh. It's been comical because I've been like, girl, like, this thing, it's supposed to make me mad. Like, grr. And then I sit there and I'm like, girl, I don't care. And it's been really funny, actually. So I think this is just making me better for the future because, like, now I'm like, if I got in a job and I had this mindset of just, like, what happens, what doesn't, and just letting things pass like a river, I think I'll be a lot more secure in a job now because then I'll be actually genuinely excited about being there. If I'm not comfortable there, I'll be more in tune with my thoughts to, like, leave. I won't stay somewhere out of craving for it. I'll be like, you know what? I've been unemployed before. I know what it's like. And it's actually more fun than being here with all these people that make me mad. So I feel like just getting a better relationship with, like, non-productivity has helped me a lot because your productivity is not equal to your worth. And I've had to sit there and really hone into that because personally, like I said, I used to stress myself in school and I was really a cadet. I was in the IGAF war. I gave a F. I cared so much about school, and for a good reason. Like, I got the award that I wanted, but the residual effects of that were me coming out of college shitting on myself for not having a job, like really just taking a deuce. It was really bad. I was so mean to myself. And I sit there and I laugh about it now because, like, look, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. Now I am honing into the IJBOL. I just bust out laughing. Okay? I am from Ijbolia. Officially. Like, I just got my stamp on my passport and I got my citizenship because my mother's from Ijbolia. Like, I call my mom to talk about stuff. This lady is always like mid laugh. She's laughing all the time. And my father is from IDGA Afghanistan. He do not care about nothing. And he be laughing too. And I'm like, I have a father from IDGA Afghanistan and a mother from Ijbolia. Why am I not like, what's not clicking for me? I need to make sure that I need to act like I am descendants of these people and start stopping caring and laughing more. Like, look, if you can, take a trip to I Just Bust Out Laughing, Ijbolia, okay? Or take a trip to IDG Afghanistan. Sometimes you just gotta not give a F. Just sometimes. Like, I feel like when you take life too seriously, that's when it hits you in the face. And it's like, whoa, was I just shitting on myself for something I'm trying for the first time? Like, let's not do that. Like, let's have fun with it. Like, just bring more fun into your life. Even if it's in the smallest way, just like, be like, bro, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. Like, just like kind of like look at the camera, like the metaphorical camera, like in a sitcom, like when they look at the camera, they're like, get a load of this guy. Like, sometimes you just gotta, laugh and pretend you're in the simulation looking at the controller and be like, look at this guy. Sometimes I think that's what's made me a little bit more of a relaxer person. And people would tell me that I'm calm. People would tell me that, like, I calm them down sometimes. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true because I don't calm myself down. I piss myself off sometimes. I mean, granted, that's like just like any other friend. Like, you have a friend who you might love, who's like awesome, but sometimes they might piss you off. They're like any other human being. So I'm just going to give myself that grace too. Like, I'm just like any other human being. I'm going to piss myself off sometimes, but I'm still human. You know what I mean? This episode probably gonna be titled like random because I literally was just talking in circles, but it was fun though. I actually got to laugh. I got to show you the true descendant of someone whose mother is from I Just Bust Out Laughing, Ijbolia. My mother is from Ijbolia and my father's from IDG Afghanistan. So like, I needed to show y'all this is what goes through my head most of the days. Like, I'm kind of just, live laughing and loving unironically, and it's great, and I recommend it. So yeah, moral of the story, stop being hard on yourself. If you have external pressures, there definitely is some type of like feeling of like a sense of urgency almost, where you feel like you have to like please them and X, Y, and Z. So it just someone telling you be yourself is probably like, girl, shut up. Like, I'm trying and I have external things that are making me feel like I can't, or like I have external things that are like forcing me not to be myself, quote unquote, or like be calm. A person on the internet telling you to just relax is probably not making it any better, honestly. But I will say, if you can, just take time for yourself to laugh because it's good for your gut. Like, it's really genuinely good for your body to just like let that out. For me, laughing and crying are the two things that make me, like, remind me that I'm human. Like, just a genuine good cry that, like, come from the soul. Because I used to hate crying because it used to make me feel like I'm giving up. And, like, that's the last straw. The last straw, last is me crying. And that just shows, like, look, I give up. But now, like, I literally, like, sometimes just, like, feel it and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Okay, I just need to get it out. When you're in that state, it can literally feel like the world is crumbling around you. So just finding a way to just take a break from the powers that be around you will make you feel so much more fulfilled at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So, yeah, just find your thing. whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga. It doesn't have to be that. It can be watching your favorite show. Even if you like to make sure that you're on a rigorous schedule and like super productive, make sure you have that one thing every single day that you get to. Whether it's washing your face, because sometimes you can forget to do self-care. Washing your face, watching one episode of a show you really like, listening to one chapter of a audiobook, doing your hair for the next day, lighting a candle that you really like the smell of right before bed or something, listening to your favorite song that like gets you going for the day or gets you ready for bed, writing in a journal. Like, find something that you will never allow yourself to like be rid of, so that you can just have that peace of mind that like, it's me who I got at the end of the day. It's me. And just being your best friend, you know, showing yourself that same level of friendship and respect that you would any other person that comes in your life, you know? So yeah, that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for listening to episode 4 of the Hip and Cool podcast. And thank you so much for all the love on episode 3, 2, and 1. Like, I feel like specifically episode 3 got a lot of love, and I just really appreciate it. Thank you so much for continuing to listen and just being there. Really appreciate it. Like, this has been so fun, just like figuring out what I like, figuring out what I don't like, and just like you guys along for the journey with me. Like, thank you so much. If you listen to this episode, even though it was a little random, thank you so much. And I'm having so much fun with this, and I hope you are having as much fun too and enjoying the journey with me as we figure out what the Hip and Cool podcast even is, you know? So I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you eating good. I hope you're having a really good time with your friends. I just hope that the end of summer is treating you well. You know what I mean? Have a great day. Goodbye. And choose love always. Love yourself, love others, love the world. Just choose it and love it. And yeah, bye.